Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Todd Stark of Stark VO. I'm a voiceover artist and you're watching I'm Just Saying. Today I'd like to share a video regarding the building of my whisper room. Now, as everyone in voiceover knows, a whisper room is one of many solutions artists can employ to provide a semi-permanent acoustically controlled environment. I say acoustically controlled because, as everyone also knows, there's no such thing as a soundproof environment. Well, maybe the vacuum of space. But that's not practical. A whisper room is one of a number of really great solutions that, if used optimally, can provide a super quiet space for voiceover, as well as other applications related to music production, conferencing, and things of that nature. Now, a lot of videos have been produced regarding voiceover booth builds, be they whisper rooms or any other type, and I'd like to offer something a little different in this video. That is to say, I'm not going to tell you about what a great job the booth does at keeping sound out or in. There are plenty of great videos out there to attest to the usefulness of a whisper room, a Studio Bricks booth, or an infinite number of great custom-built designs. Instead, I'd like to focus this video on things like what were the challenges in the assembly of the whisper room itself, and what features do I most appreciate about the finished product. It's my hope that this video will help others improve their assembly experience. Now, my particular whisper room is a product called a 4872S. It's roughly 4 feet by 6 feet. The S stands for a single wall as opposed to a unit that has 2 separate layers of wall, which is known as a 4872E. Because I'm already fortunate to have a pretty quiet space in which to record, the single wall is fine for my needs. The double wall model probably makes sense if you live in an environment where you have a lot of noise from, say, traffic or pets or families or a furnace or something like that. By using this booth, however, and some really effective interior treatments to absorb and reflect sound frequencies, I think I've created a pretty good long-term solution for voiceover. By the way, I mention and show a number of brands in this video, and I want you to know that no one has endorsed this, and no one is providing me compensation of any kind. I'm simply producing this video in the hopes that it proves useful to some of you, and you should feel free to reach out later if you have questions or wish to explore any of these issues in the video further. Okay, let's jump in. For starters, let's take a quick look at my previous booth. It was really just a small walk-in closet that I'd torn apart and rebuilt as a dedicated voiceover space. It was pretty tricked out though, with some low-end acoustical foam on all the walls and ceiling, some LED lighting strips, and a Sennheiser MKH416 feeding into a Scarlett 2i2 and then into my MacBook. But it felt really tight and I wanted a larger space. Separate from my voiceover booth, I had a regular home office space, ideal for non-voiceover work, but way too big and boomy for VO, not worth the effort to try to create a dry sound. So I tore it apart to create space for the whisper room and an engineering station. For this stage and the whisper room build itself, I had the help of my good friend Drake Ambrosino. The whisper room arrived on a pallet with 17 boxes totaling over 900 pounds. The step-by-step instructions that came with it were really good, very thorough, and absolutely necessary for a proper assembly. The build itself really does require 2 people, at least for a booth this size or larger. There are just too many components that are both bulky and heavy to try to do it alone. After this segment of the video, I'll go back and show you some of the elements of the assembly worth noting. Safety hazard. My bad, Drake. Sorry about that. Most of the build was pretty straightforward. The pieces fit together well with a few minor adjustments, and when finished, the booth looked great and was very solid. Also, all the Velcro surfaces have a really professional look to them, and it's really good quality Velcro too. But initial assembly doesn't account for the acoustical treatment required inside. Rather than rely too heavily on the included Auralex 2-inch foam, I lined the booth with 4-inch ATS acoustical panels and some ATS open-backed bass traps for the corners. I then used Auralex's Leonard bass traps and the studio foam pyramids to provide deflection on the remaining surfaces. I put a couple of rugs down on the floor, and that provided some additional sound absorption as well as comfort underfoot. So there you go. Now I want to talk about a few challenges I encountered during the assembly. The first is the hardware. Count it when you first open the bag containing it. The instructions clearly indicate what's in the hardware bag, but in my case there were several bolts missing. I called my WhisperRoom representative, and he did send me more. His service was exemplary, and he's a credit to the company, but it would have been better to have all the hardware in the first place. Another comment about hardware: install it carefully. 2 of the 3 bolt types are pretty fragile, and if you don't thread them with absolute precision, the heads will strip, rendering them useless. The second issue is the roof. It's a well-constructed piece of kit, but it is heavy. And hey, I know I'm not as strong as I used to be. These days, the only weightlifting I do is curling a cup of cappuccino. Half full. But be careful when lifting the roof into place. Another tip, and this one is tricky: be sure the roof hinges are oriented correctly relative to the side panels. A lot of WhisperRoom booths have side panels that are of 2 different widths. Notice how this is illustrated in the instructions. Now, you can reverse these panels if you want to, and say put the wide panels in the front and the narrow panels in the back relative to the booth entrance. But if you do that, you must move both of the identical panels and also make sure the roof holes all line up with the side panels. If you don't do this whole exercise properly, you'll have to either switch the panels or reverse the roof to get everything to fit. Not a showstopper, but it adds time and effort, and the roof doesn't get any lighter the second time around. So just be sure you've thought through all of this before assembly. My recommendation is just to follow the instructions to the letter. That will avoid the Charlie Foxtrot that I've just described or that you've seen in the video. Now, back to that Velcro surface covering both the inside and outside of all the WhisperRoom walls. It's great, but the adhesive they use to attach the Velcro has an odor. And remember all those air purifiers I had set up after the assembly? They were there to combat that smell. Why? Play-Doh smell, that's why. What is Play-Doh, you might ask? Well, for those who don't know, Play-Doh is that lovable, smushy clay going back to the 1960s. Just like these kids, I would take my Play-Doh fun factory and squish clay out into all kinds of cool shapes. Yes, the Play-Doh fun factory provided hours of enjoyment. But whatever the adhesive is that's used to attach this Velcro smells just like it. And that odoriferous memory is less appealing in my office than it was in my parents' living room. Play-Doh Fun Factory comes with everything you see here, WhisperRoom not included. Okay, there are a lot of great features with the WhisperRoom, and I'd like to point out just a couple. While I used the Auralex foam primarily as trim, I did use it, and in my experience, it's about the best of the acoustical foams. I think it's best suited for reflecting mid and higher sound frequencies, and in the case of my booth dimensions and specific vocal characteristics, deeper and more absorbent Roxol material probably works better for creating a dry sound environment than foam alone. Next up are the optional studio lights. Turn these babies on and pow! A whole new vibe in the booth. There's a seemingly infinite number of ways to illuminate your booth with the wireless controller, and the right light might just improve both your workflow productivity and wow factor happiness. Now let's be honest, there are certainly more cost-effective ways to light your booth, but there is nothing that's cooler looking than this one. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the ventilation system. The fan that manages air handling seems to be pretty effective. The wireless controller offers a number of fan speeds, and air circulation inside the booth seems to be sufficient to keep it cool, but it isn't audible. Originally, my fan had no noise suppression system around it, and I could turn the fan up to about 1/4 power and couldn't hear it inside the booth. But as I got closer to half power, I could hear the faint hum of the fan. While I could have purchased the exterior fan silencer, I elected to enclose the fan in a noise reduction system of my own design instead. With this design that I built right into the shelving unit that sits right next to the booth, I'm able to turn the fan up to about 3/4 speed before I can hear it in the booth, and I don't think I'm ever going to turn it up any louder than that anymore. I did, however, purchase the ventilation silencing system. This effectively doubles the amount of intake and exhaust duct through which air has to travel, and it's my belief that this probably is an effective way to reduce air handling noise that's directly against the outside wall of the booth. And there you have it, my completed booth. The sound is even drier and deader than my 3x3 closet, and I have much more space for my work, including this tricked out rolling hospital cart that I've hacked to use as a stand-up, sit-down voiceover station. My new audio engineering area is complete as well, and I am a happy VO camper. That's it. That's my new Whisper Room. I'm very pleased with it, and I hope this video has proven useful to some of you. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like to chat about. Until we see each other again, thank you for watching. I'm Todd Stark, and this is I'm Just Saying.